How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. If this is your first time here, this channel is all about teaching you personal finance, investing, real estate, and personal development. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing. Today's video is about how you can get a perfect credit score and the simple steps you will need to take. Think of your credit score as your report card for how well you handle your finances. In school, your grade might depend on turning in your homework on time or passing your test. In life, your credit score is based on making your payments on time and the amount of debt you have, along with a few other things that I'll cover in this video. There are many places where you can check your credit score. For example, if you have an American Express or Discover credit card, they offer a feature where you can check your score for free. However, if you don't have an American Express or Discover credit card, there are some other companies that allow you to check your credit score for free. But you can also use websites like Credit Karma, which is also free. Having a good credit score is something that most people don't realize how valuable it is until you try and make a big purchase like a house, and then you realize no one will give you a loan because of your bad credit history. So having a good credit score will not only save you money by being able to get loans with lower rates, but a good credit score will also make you thousands of dollars by being able to qualify for credit cards that offer great bonuses and cash back. Also, when you're looking to buy real estate, having a good credit score means lenders will give you thousands of dollars in closing costs, and all you have to do is maintain a good credit score. Just by following the simple steps in this video, you'll be saving thousands, and the best part is it's 100% free. The first step to getting a perfect credit score is understanding what makes up your credit score and how everything is calculated. Just like in school where different assignments and tests are weighted differently, the same is true of your credit score. For example, in college, you can have a class where homework is worth 10%, then quizzes are worth 15%, your midterm is 20%, projects are also 20%, and then your final exam is worth 35% of your overall grade. Well, your credit score is broken up into sections also, so if you want a perfect score, you must do well in all the categories. Now let's take a look at what makes up your credit score and how much each part counts towards your overall score. The biggest item is your payment history, making up 35% of your score. Then there's the total amount of debt you owe, and that makes up 30%. Next is the length of your credit history, which makes up 15% of your score. Then is the credit mix you have, which makes up 10% of your score. And fifth is any new credit, which makes up 10% of your total credit score. Put all of these together and you have everything that is used to calculate your credit score. Now let's take a deeper look into each category. The biggest factor making up 35% of your score is your payment history. This is pretty easy to understand. It's just making all of your payments on time and never missing a payment. This is calculated by taking all of your on-time payments and dividing it by your total payments. So let's say you are pretty new to having credit, so you've only had one credit card in the last 2 years or 24 months, and in that time you've only had one late payment. Seems pretty harmless, right? Well, let's do some math and find out. So out of 24 total payments, you made 23 payments on time. So that means you're going to divide 23 on-time payments by 24 total payments, which equals 95.8%. So that means you made your payments on time 95.8% of the time. Now, if we look at this chart, you can see making your payments on time 95.8% of the time puts you in the very poor section. You might have assumed that in the 2 years that you've had your credit card, only having one late payment wasn't a big deal. But actually, it is. Now let's assume that you've had credit for a long time and you've had various credit cards, car loans, and a mortgage over time. If you've had 5 credit cards over the last 10 years, then you've had a total of 600 payments. Then let's say you've had a car payment 5 out of the last 10 years, so that's a total of 60 payments. And then you bought a house 2 years ago, so you've had 24 mortgage payments. That means you've had a total of 684 payments, and if you've had 3 late payments, well, that's 681 on-time payments. Divided by 684 total payments, which means you've paid on time 99.6% of the time. And making your payments on time 99.6% of the time puts you right on the border of a perfect score. Even though in the second example, this person has had 3 times more late payments than the person in the first example, because the person in the first example has had a longer credit history, those late payments won't affect them as much. If you want to score excellent in this section, all you have to do is make sure you never miss a payment, even if you only make the minimum payment. Just make sure you always pay on time. If you're someone who's very forgetful, then just set up automatic payments and you'll never miss a payment again. The second factor that makes up your credit score is the total amount of credit used, and this makes up 30% of your overall score. This just means how much credit do you have available versus how much credit you actually use. To make this calculation, you take your total credit used and divide it by the total credit you have available. If you have a total of $1,000 in available credit, but your balance is $800, then the percentage of used credit will be 80%. And using 80% of your available credit puts you in the very poor section. However, if you have a total of $30,000 in available credit and your balance is $2,000, then the percentage of credit being used is only 6.7%, which means you're in the excellent column. To stay in the excellent column, you should maintain your balances under 9% at all times. The third factor that makes up your credit score is the average length of your credit history, which is 15% of your total score. For example, if you open your first credit card 2 years ago and then you open another one today, You would take the average, and that gives us a credit history of 1 year. Basically, when it comes to this section, my advice is that you begin to establish credit history as soon as you can. You can even do what I did and go apply for a credit card as soon as you turn 18. Just make sure to use it responsibly. You should also avoid closing credit cards, especially if they are the credit cards that you've had for the longest time, because they can really lower the average age of your credit history. You could easily drop from having 5 years of average credit history, which is fair, down to 2 years, which is very poor, all because you closed some long-term accounts. With this section, 2 good tips is to start building your credit history as soon as you can and maintain all of your accounts open even if you don't use them. And the second tip is to have patience. You won't be able to make a jump from poor to excellent in this section by changing some behaviors like in the last sections. Also, the average length of your credit history only makes up 15% of your total score, so it's not going to have a major impact on your total credit score. If you place a little low in this section, just make sure you score high in the other sections. The fourth part that makes up your credit score is the total number of accounts that you have open and what type of credit these accounts are. And this makes up 10% of your score. In order to place in the excellent section, you will need to have more than 21 lines of credit, which I know sounds pretty crazy, and I'll be honest, I don't even have that many lines of credit open. Most people find this hard to believe because you would think that having less lines of credit open means you're better off financially and you don't need so much credit, but that's not the case. The logic here is that the more lines of credit you have open, the more credit you have access to, which helps boost your credit score, because when you go and spend $1,000 and you only have a credit limit of $2,000, that shows you have a high usage of your credit. But when you go spend $1,000 and you have $30,000 in available credit, then your usage will appear low. Also, the more credit you have open, the more total payments you'll have, which is just more data they can collect to get a better idea of how you handle your finances. They also want to see that you have a mix of credit available, so it's better to have some credit cards, a car loan, and maybe a mortgage than having all credit cards, because this shows you're able to handle different types of credit responsibly. Don't get me wrong though, if you aren't responsible with your credit cards and managing your finances, then having more access to credit is worse than having 1 or 2 open accounts. If you have 21 lines of credit and you max out every single one, then it's going to show a very high usage of your available credit, which is a great way to bring your score down. Also, if you're having a hard time keeping up with your payments on 2 credit cards and you go get 15 credit cards, then you're just putting yourself in a bad position, because if you miss payments or default on any of the credit cards, your score will be anything but perfect. You obviously shouldn't go open a ton of credit cards right away, so you can bump up your score in this section, because doing that will bring your score down in other areas. Even though for this category, having more open credit is better than less, you should be careful when you apply for more credit and make sure you're using it responsibly and staying on top of your payments. The fifth part that makes up your credit history is any hard inquiries you made recently, and this makes up 10% of your total credit score. When people run your credit score, there are 2 types of inquiries they can run, and which inquiry they run depends on the purpose for looking at your credit score. The first one is a hard inquiry, and this is normally used when you apply for a car loan, a mortgage, or a new credit card. Then a soft inquiry is used when you don't need a full and detailed report of your credit score, which is normally what happens when you check your credit score with American Express or Credit Karma. The types you want to avoid doing often are hard inquiries, because the way the credit bureau sees it is that something in your life changed and now you need access to credit. And this is why you don't want to go and apply for more credit all at once to boost up the section that measures how many lines of credit you have open. If you try to reach 21 lines of credit too soon, you will end up lowering your score by having too many hard inquiries in a short period of time. However, the good thing about hard inquiries is that after 12 months, those inquiries will not affect your credit score, and after 2 years, they drop off your credit report entirely. Another benefit is if you're shopping for a house and you meet with different lenders and they all run your credit, it will only count as 1 inquiry. Even though they were all hard inquiries, the credit bureau will group them as 1 hard inquiry, and they do this so you can shop around for the best terms without affecting you in a negative way. However, for this to be true, you have to do this within a short period of time, because if you meet with 2 lenders at the beginning of the year, then 3 lenders in 6 months, then the inquiries won't be grouped into 1 inquiry because the time length between them was too long. In order to place in the excellent category for this section, you should have 0 hard inquiries within the last 12 months, which is kind of ridiculous, but overall, just remember, this is only 10% of your total credit score. So if you keep the hard inquiries down to a bare minimum, it won't have a huge impact on your credit score. Maintaining your credit score as high as possible is just as important as saving for retirement or having an emergency fund. Each one of these has its own purpose. Your credit score is used to determine the likelihood that you will pay back your debts, and therefore, a low credit score will make it more difficult to qualify for loans. Credit scores can range from a low of 300 to a high of 850, and typically, a score above 700 is considered good. But if you want the absolute best rates and offers, you should aim for 800 and above. Since a higher score means you've handled your finances well and you have made good credit decisions, creditors will feel more confident that you will repay your debts. Credit scores are probably the most widely used method to qualify someone when it comes to borrowing anything from a car loan to a mortgage. Even if you are trying to rent an apartment, they will look at your credit history. All you have to do to maintain a good credit score is spend a little time here and there to check up on everything and make sure your payments are made on time and your balance levels aren't too high. Basically, just have discipline. And the best part is, keeping a good credit score will cost you $0, but it can save and make you dozens of dollars over time by getting lower rates and better cashback offers. And with that being said, I hope this video helped you understand why your credit score is important and how you can improve it. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.